For almost 2,000 years, there were no Jews in Palestine. There were some pockets in, Iraq and other, in the Arab world, but for the most part, they were gone from Palestine. It wasn't until the 1880s under Theodor Herzl that this modern idea of Zionism started to take hold, and that is, people without a land to a land without a people.
Why do they believe Gaza's theirs? What's the flip side to the coin?
Why does who believe?
Why does the Arab community believe that they shouldn't have to give that up?
Because they've been there. Yes, that's their native land. They've been there for thousands of years.
So Hill, I'm taking it back. I'm giving a history lesson.
Okay.
Why are we where we are now? And are we ever going to fucking solve this shit?
Here's a brief history, okay? The Romans, remember, they turned the Mediterranean into a Roman lake. They conquered the entire periphery of the Mediterranean, including Palestine. And the Romans were considered geniuses because when they would conquer a kingdom, they would then incorporate it into the Roman Empire. And that meant they got, like the British, with their common law, the Roman law would apply. They had safe borders, and the people could prosper now as a part of Rome. The one fly in the ointment they had, of course, was the problem they had with the Israelites. Okay, they decided, hey, we are not going to live by your rules. We're going to do it our way, and we don't care what you say. So the Romans had trouble subjugating them, and they fought a series of wars with them. And finally, the diaspora was the result of it, the Jewish diaspora. From 79 A.D. to, I think, 139 A.D., the Romans fought, just devastating wars. They lost a lot of people and killed a whole lot of Israelis. But the end result was they kicked them out. They exiled them. They said, that's it. You're out of here. Get out. And they did. They left. And so those are the Russian Jews, the Ukrainian Jews, the Polish Jews, the Sephardic Jews in the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. They were the descendants of the folks who were kicked out of Palestine. So basically for almost 2,000 years, there were no Jews in Palestine. There were some pockets in, Iraq and other, in the Arab world, but for the most part, they were gone from Palestine. And it wasn't until the 1880s under Theodor Herzl that this modern idea of Zionism started to take hold, and that is, people without a land to a land without a people. Well, of course they got a land because lots of Jews came to the United States, and we've offered a pretty darn good home for them, and Poles and Italians and Haitians and Mexicans and you name it. Irish, lots of groups came here and have prospered, and American Jews have prospered too. But this idea of Zionism was that they can go back to their biblical homeland. And so in the 1880s, Herzl started to encourage us and lobby the British government for this. And, of course, the Ottoman Empire was in control of that part at the time. The Ottoman Empire takes over the Middle East based in Turkey around 1500 by taking over from the Byzantine Empire, which was nothing more than the Eastern Roman Empire. So they take over from the Byzantines. The Ottomans are in control until World War I, basically. And so Theodor Herzl has all these European Ashkenazi Jews coming over to Palestine, they call it Aliyah. It was like a religious pilgrimage where you go over to your ancient homeland. And so by 1920, or after World War I, by 1920 census, they've got 50,000 mostly European Jews living in Palestine under the British mandate. But of course, there are 60,000 Arab Christians and 500,000 Arab Muslims. So they were a distinct minority, and they weren't even from there. And of course, their goal was to create a theocracy. And you can imagine when 50,000 people out of 610 say, hey, we're going to make this a theocracy and it's going to be our religion, not yours, you're going to have a lot of problems. And so Herzl and then, the late Chaim Weizmann and the later founders all realized that. And so they very successfully manipulated the Western governments because they had a lot of money. They had a very distinct goal of recreating Israel. They got the Balfour Declaration as a distraction. Let me back up a little bit. Okay. In 1917, 2% of the Russian Empire's population is Jewish. Most of the Bolshevik leadership was Jewish, and they take down the Tsar, basically. Meanwhile, the Kaiser, World War I's a disaster for everybody, although the Germans had the upper hand in 1916. The Kaiser reaches out to his cousin, King George of England, says, listen, cuz, let's call this whole thing off. Let's call it a draw, go back to where we were. It's not working out for anybody.
Start over.
And the German Jewish bankers sent a contingent over to meet with Lord Balfour, the British Foreign Secretary, and they said, listen, don't take this seemingly generous offer of an armistice. We think we can get the United States to enter this war on England's side. And if that happens, it should tip the balance in your favor. But if we do this, you got to do something for us, and that is support the creation of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. And that's what the famous Balfour Declaration is that Zionists use as justification. But of course, the Balfour Declaration simply says His Majesty's government views with favor the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. And then they gave it to Woodrow Wilson, who added language about it, but nothing here shall be taken to deny the rights of the local Arab population. And of course, from day one, they've been denying the Arab population any semblance of a right. And so what happened was, they were trying to get as many people. From the beginning, it's been all about how to get more Jews into Palestine and get rid of the Arab population. That's always been it's been a mathematical problem from the get-go. And that's why it's so intractable, because even after World War II, when there was an influx of refugees to that part of the world, of course, the local Arab population and Palestinian population is having lots and lots of kids, lots more kids than the Jews were having. So I think even now in the West Bank, there's something like 5 million Arabs. And even after 50, 60 years of feverish settlement building by the Israelis, there's still only like 400,000, I think, Israelis.
Just don't procreate as prolifically?
That's right. And the more educated, it's kind of a demographics.
Yeah.
If the more you're educated, the smaller your family becomes.
Right.
The Russian had the same problem. When the Soviet Union existed, the white Russians, who were the elite of Russia, they lived in Moscow and St. Petersburg, and they were having fewer children. They lived in industrial areas. They were having 1.5 child or whatever it was. Meanwhile, in Kazakhstan, they're having 8 kids. And so the Russians, towards the end of the Soviet Union, they were doctoring, it was believed, they were doctoring their statistics to show 51% of the population was still white Russians when they probably were a minority by then.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for checking out my videos here on the Jess Marshall YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe for sure. Hit that bell. Press that button to watch the next video. If you got a question you have about any of the topics I bring up in the videos, drop a question below, and we'll be sure to get an answer back to you ASAP. See you on the next one.